Welcome back. One Creighton pharmacy student and Methodist intern went above and beyond, finding a solution to a problem that's going to save pharmacies hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Our Bella Caracta shows us his cost-saving solution that helps bring down drug prices.
A rectal suppository isn't a prescription most people want to fill. Even worse, having to do it twice in one go. Tyler Brisso, a fourth-year pharmacy student and Methodist employee, created a solution where both the patient and pharmacy benefit.
So what I found is the desired strength that's recommended by most clinical studies, and then I found a recipe to compound that medicine in that desired strength.
A way to turn two suppositories into one, with the clinically proven effective dosage to treat pancreatitis as a result of a specific endoscopic procedure.
I didn't see this becoming such the project that it turned into being.
Tyler kind of hit the ground running with that particular project. We're not just doling pills out. So we are making sure that what is prescribed by a provider is the actual best medication for that patient and the safest medication for that patient.
Brisso's innovative thinking to compound indomethacin, a commercially found drug, is expected to save the Methodist health system $100,000 a year.
So it is scalable.
Drugs are super expensive. They're not getting less expensive, so we have to come up with innovative ways to find savings when we can.
As pharmacy director, Ryan shared Brisso's 10-step method to other Midwest health systems.
We are willing to share innovative ideas because we're all in the same boat. We're all spending too much money on medications and want to be able to do the right thing for patients in an economical way.
A pharmacist can have an impact in pretty much every patient-directed goal. We want to improve the quality of care for our patients, and I think this is just yet another example of how a pharmacist can impact that care.
Because the pharmacy is saving money, patients enjoy cheaper costs for the drug too. On your side in Council Bluffs, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
And Tyler's work was so impressive, Methodist has a job waiting for him when he graduates.